life in the US since Donald Trump entered the scene. But underneath the calm surface, inside Washington, a Trump revolution is brewing as he announces more members of his team with selections designed to reflect the most radical elements of the new president's agenda. We'll have more on perhaps the most controversial of those appointments, Elon Musk, in a moment. But first, here's our US correspondent, Mark Stone.
Touching down at the presidential airbase and past the presidential planes that will soon be his again. It was back to the future for the comeback president. Surely for him, this moment is a neat two fingers for the many who said he never would, he never could. But he did, now with a victory that has secured him the House, the Senate, and the place he will soon move back to. In anticipation of this moment of transition, this moment in history, the cameras of the world were here.
Well, Mr. President.
And for all that anticipation, what would it be like?
Donald, congratulations. And looking forward to having like we said, smooth transition. Do everything we can to make sure you're accommodated, what you need.
Well, in the end, it was, of course, cordial.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much. And politics is tough, and it's in many cases not a very nice world, but it is a nice world today, and I appreciate very much a transition that's so smooth. It'll be as smooth as it can get, and I very much appreciate that, Jim.
President Biden surely wanting to give Donald Trump what he never offered 4 years ago, a concession of defeat and a transition. And so two men who have such starkly different visions, two men who have exchanged such brutal words for each other over many years. A danger to democracy, Biden said of Trump so many times. Well, now it is the process of democracy that demanded this moment, a handshake and civility. It was the outgoing press secretary left to describe the details of the two-hour meeting.
It was indeed very cordial, very gracious, and substantive. And I mentioned at the top, national security was discussed, domestic policy issues were discussed.
The 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Before the White House, President-elect Trump's first stop was Capitol Hill to congratulate Republican politicians who now hold the majority in both houses of Congress.
Well, thank you very much. This is a very nice gathering. Isn't it nice to win? It's nice to win.
And behind all this, his cabinet nominations keep coming.
I'm Pete Hegseth.
This is the man he wants to be his defense secretary. Fox News host, former National Guard Major Pete Hegseth. His name raised eyebrows, of course, but then that is precisely Trump's intention. And his views on the military, on China, a hint of the direction of travel may be.
We're always a decade behind in fighting the last war. Whereas China's building an army specifically dedicated to defeating the United States of America.
Images then for the ages, released by the White House. It is almost as if the last few years never happened. A reset or a pause for posterity before the new world begins. Mark Stone, Sky News at the White House.
Well, our US correspondent James Matthews joins us live now from the White House. James, harmony between Biden and Trump in the White House today, but the appointments announced by Mr. Trump so far, continuing tonight, seem to signal that he is perhaps spoiling for a fight when he returns to office.
Yeah, controversial appointments. Everyone is jaw-dropping as the previous. And in the past couple of hours, he's appointed Matt Gaetz as Attorney General, the top legal job in the country. Matt Gaetz is hugely controversial, a relatively junior player in US politics, a firebrand, a representative from Florida, very much a Donald Trump loyalist, possibly why he was chosen, of course. But to get that job, clearly job number one for him, or task number one, will be to take care and make go away the criminal prosecutions still on the table of Donald Trump himself. But Gaetz, as I say, controversial. He is facing a House ethics investigation for the possible offence of a sexual relationship with a minor and violation of sex trafficking laws. There was an investigation by the Department of Justice, but no charges were ever brought. There is also the question for him of retribution, long promised by Donald Trump, retribution of the people who brought prosecutions against Trump and, of course, retribution possibly against Joe Biden, long talked about and long threatened by Trump. So that's Matt Gaetz, but also this business of the TV presenter who will be the Secretary of State now for Defence, should that be confirmed. Pete Hegseth, very much the square-jawed TV anchorman for Fox News, straight out of central casting. Military people in the States that I speak to, they're concerned about lack of experience. He does have a background in the military, was a captain in the National Guard, but what they point out to me is the scale of this job. It's the world's biggest military. So in terms of the politics and personnel, that will be a huge challenge for that particular individual. And it will cause anxiety in parts of the world that depend on the intervention and the support of the US military. Because that, you know, it's about relationships, the building of relationships in the likes of Ukraine and other trouble spots around the world. So there is concern that he doesn't have the capacity for that. But of course, what he does have is what Donald Trump wants most, and that is loyalty to him and to his agenda. So that's Matt Gaetz, that's Pete Hegseth. Of course, there is Elon Musk in the company of Donald Trump since he won the election, and by his side today on this trip to Washington, D.C. He is the billionaire who poured millions into the Donald Trump campaign. And of course, there has been this question, what's in it for him? Well, we got a sense of the kickback today. He has a job in government, the Department of Government Efficiency. He'll run that. It's a department that runs alongside the government itself. But clearly, he's a man of power and influence, and his power enhanced now by the company that he keeps. The picture emerging of the Trump presidency has Elon Musk centre frame. On the Washington trip, the big donor wasn't missing the big day out.
So we have to get Elon with his boy.
Okay. The businessman by Trump's side has acquired the consultancy of crafting and administration. Having poured millions into the Trump campaign, payback has come in a department called DOGE. Officially, the Department of Government Efficiency, it will operate alongside government, targeting its institutions like the Department of Education. Musk is tasked with dismantling bureaucracy, regulations, and with reducing waste. Ironically, it's the anti-excess agency with not one but two heads. Vivek Ramaswamy, one-time contender for presidential nominee, will be Musk's partner. Vladimir Putin calls you outstanding, Mr. Musk. Elon Musk has been short on answers in the past. His appointment raises questions of who he's answerable to. He is the outside contractor inside government, with the power to regulate the regulators.
Well, it's certainly worth looking at whether any of these individuals have ulterior motives for what they're pursuing. And certainly in the case of Elon Musk, that is true. You know, his many businesses are going to be affected by the regulatory environment of the U.S. Typically, federal employees have to disclose their assets and any personal financial ties to prevent conflicts of interest. However, since Musk would not serve as an official government employee, he would be exempt from those requirements, which I think is very notable.
Simon Balmain worked for Twitter when Elon Musk bought the company and cut 80% of the workforce.
I think very much what we saw at Twitter was the scorched earth policy of trying to get to this desired outcome and hoping that it all works out well, and not really worrying about the individual level of what's happening, or even a lot of the business understanding that was required. And we saw this with people that were actually, there were people that were actually laid off that were then considered to be critical to the organization, and they were begged to come back.
In his Washington meeting with House Republicans, Donald Trump joked that Elon Musk wouldn't go home. I can't get rid of him, he said. House Democrats were non-committal on the question of outside influence. It's not a concern.
I did not say that. I said that my focus is on Americans.
Is that a concern?
My focus is on Americans right now and making sure that we have an economy that works for them.
Sky News has learned that prior to the Washington trip, Musk's near-constant presence at Trump's Florida base has begun to wear on those in the inner circle. Sources have told us that they see Elon Musk as overstepping his role in the government's transition. One said he's behaving as if he's a co-president. and making sure everyone knows it. And he's sure taking lots of credit for the president's victory. How far the credit extends is the concern. James Matthews, Sky News in Washington.
There was high drama at the Old Bailey today after Sara Sharif's father told jurors at her murder trial that he takes full responsibility for the death of his daughter. Irfan Sharif is on trial alongside Sara's stepmother and uncle. All three have denied murder and an alternative charge of causing or allowing her death. Sky's Saba Chowdhury has this report.
Irfan Sharif arrested after fleeing the country.
You are suspected of her murder.
A year ago, he denied killing his daughter. Today, in a dramatic U-turn, he's admitted to causing the death of 10-year-old Sara Sharif. In a shock admission under cross-examination, he told a jury he takes full responsibility for the death of Sara. He said she died because of me, from beating. I accept every single thing. Today was a bombshell moment at the Old Bailey. Previously, Sharif had denied everything, saying that he'd only slapped Sara. Now he's admitted responsibility towards her death, although he stresses he did not intend to kill her. Until now, Sharif said he was covering for another family member. It's why, he says, he initially confessed to police.
Take a deep breath and tell me what's happened.
I cannot. I physically punished my daughter and she died.
Your daughter has died?
I killed my daughter.
How have you killed your daughter?
I beat her up. It wasn't my intention to kill her, but I beat her up too much.
The jury had also seen a note left by Sara's body, written by her father. I love you, Sara, he wrote. I'm running away because I'm scared, and I swear to God my intention was not to kill her. Today, Sharif told a jury that at home he would strangle Sara and sometimes hit her with a cricket bat and pole while she was bound up by tape, unable to move, causing the 25 fractures found in her post-mortem, injuries he denied causing in court last week. Sharif, as well as his wife and brother, are charged with Sara's murder and causing or allowing her death, which they all deny. Sharif's change in tack is a pivotal moment in this trial. He maintains he didn't intend to kill his daughter, but it's the jury who'll decide how culpable he really is. Saba Chowdhury, Sky News at the Old Bailey.
Well, let's turn to the war in Ukraine now. And Ukrainian forces were already facing a harsh winter even before the prospect of a Donald Trump return to the White House became a reality. It remains to be seen what impact a Trump presidency will have on financial and military support for Kyiv. But on the ground, the situation in the war against Russia is even now getting worse, with Vladimir Putin intensifying his offensive in the east. Well, Sky News has been on the front line where Ukrainian forces are fighting to down Russian drones being fired in record numbers. While Russia has dramatically scaled up its long-range drone attacks on Ukraine to try to grind down the country's air defences, the number of attacks using Shahed drones supplied to Russia by Iran have surged in recent weeks. This map shows the scale of the attacks since the 1st of October, with the highest number of attacks on the capital, Kyiv, but reaching as far as Odessa. And the use of drones is escalating. Since the start of November, Ukraine has reported more than 1,000 Russian drones entering its territory, a daily average of 85. That is compared to just 11 per day back in June. It appears to be having an effect on Ukraine's air defences. Before October, Ukraine managed to shoot down at least 77% of Russian drones. That interception rate has now dropped just to 56%. In the Sumy region, anti-drone units are trying to shoot Iranian drones out of the sky, but with limited resources. Sky's chief correspondent, Stuart Ramsey, has spent time with the soldiers there and sent this report, and a warning it does contain flashing images.
Every night, the tarpaulin covers are pulled off Soviet-era anti-aircraft guns and prepped for action. On battered trucks, they rumble into the night to take up defensive positions. The Russian drone attacks on Ukraine's cities and power plants are constant, and these old guns are the country's main defense against drones. The soldiers can track the drones, many supplied to Russia by Iran, on handheld tablets. This is modern warfare colliding with old-fashioned technology. They wait and listen and watch. In fields all around us, other units join the attack. In truth, only about 30% of the drones and missiles in this sector are actually shot down.
So the soldiers are picking up the shells that have been fired from the weapons at the passing missile. The reason for that is they don't want people to see that they've been firing from here. They don't want their positions to be known by anyone who's potentially spying on them for the Russians. So they're going around trying to find the spent shells, and then they'll move and all trace of them will be gone.
Captain Sergei of the 117th Brigade is in charge of 160 men in 8 mobile units protecting the southern sector of the city of Sumy in northeastern Ukraine, near the Russian border. Air raid sirens blare as he monitors the drones, and they're coming. We speed after him through checkpoints and along darkened roads. The drone is above us.
Lights off! Lights off in the car. Drop the lights.
You can still hear the drone in the sky. They're trying to find it with searchlights. But another has got through.
We need a stronger, more automated air defense system that operates independently of human involvement.
It is absolutely relentless. An Iranian Shahid drone is flying over. They're tracking its flight, and they attack. These Ukrainian defenders, hundreds of them, will man the guns for another freezing night. The last line of defense. It's not good, but it's better than nothing. The Ukrainian military's dependence on foreign weaponry, particularly American, can't be underestimated. Hidden in a forest, they're repairing an American Bradley fighting vehicle. They haven't got enough of anything already. If Donald Trump cuts the supply, the Ukrainians will lose. It's that simple. Sasha Sharif is one of Ukraine's top field commanders. He's 30 years old. His 47th Battalion is fighting in the Russian territory of Kursk. Ukraine invaded in the summer. He's gloomy about his country's prospects, but he and his men will fight to the last.
I mean that situation is we have a lack of weapon, we have a lack of artillery, we have a lack of infantry, and other world don't care about the justice, you know, and they don't want to finish the war by our winning, you know. They're afraid Russia. I'm sorry, but they scared. They scared, and it's not the right way.
Along this 1,000-kilometre front line, there is a continuous movement of military vehicles going forward and ambulances coming back. Far behind the lines, miles inside Ukraine, new defensive positions are being built. An indicator, perhaps, of how this country is beginning to think. Stuart Ramsey, Sky News, northeastern Ukraine.
Let's bring you some breaking news tonight. And Rachel Reeves is hoping to unlock billions of pounds from pensions for investment in business and infrastructure. The Chancellor will use her first Mansion House speech tomorrow to announce the shake-up, which comes as she faces ongoing criticism and fallout from her budget. But let's bring in our business and economics correspondent, Gurpreet Nalwan, who joins me here. Budget rumbles continue, obviously, but a significant announcement from the Chancellor tomorrow.
Yeah, the Chancellor's hoping that, as you said, this could unlock about £80 billion worth of investment. She will outline all of this in the Mansion House speech. I'll just explain what that is quickly. It's an annual speech that the Chancellor gives in the heart of the City of London. The room is going to be packed full of bankers, finance professionals, company bosses, some of whom, as you hinted at just there, will be feeling pretty sour about the Chancellor's budget, which hit them with billions of pounds of tax rises that were previously unannounced. And trade bodies and business groups, they've been saying that they feel betrayed by the Chancellor and by a government that, let's not forget, spent much of the run-up to the election campaign trying to seduce them. But this is going to be the Chancellor's effort to make amends, to sort of sell a more positive vision for economic growth and investment. And the centrepiece of that is going to be this announcement on pensions reform. Not the most glamorous subject, but it does matter because Britain's pension industry is one of the largest in the world, but it's really fragmented. There are loads of relatively small pots, and that adds all these layers of costs for lawyers, for fund managers, and for advisors. And the Chancellor wants to make that whole system more efficient, starting with local government pension pots. So that's the savings of teaching assistants, librarians, council workers. She wants to merge the sort of 86 pots that are currently operating. And then when it comes to defined contribution schemes, that's the main scheme that's used in the private sector, to consolidate that into a mega fund. And the hope is that that could unlock, as I said, £80 billion worth of investment that she hopes will be spent on local projects and on large-scale infrastructure investment. That's the plan, but experts are warning that these things can be a little bit more tricky to deliver than it sounds. Previous governments have tried something similar, and when it comes to the event tomorrow, well, it might not be enough to lift the spirits of some people in the room who are feeling pretty betrayed about the Chancellor on taxation.
Full coverage tomorrow evening. Gurpreet, thank you. No more rewards for failure. The tough message today to NHS managers from the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting. He announced a series of measures to tackle poor performance across the health service in England, including with league tables. A quid pro quo for more money, he argued, but there are already concerns that a focus on targets could be at the expense of better patient care. Here's our health correspondent, Laura Bundock.
This is his set-piece moment on a stage presenting his plan for NHS reform to some of its senior leaders.
Improving services for patients should be rewarded, and the quid pro quo is that there will be no more rewards for failure. The work you do couldn't be more serious. When you get it right, lives are saved. When you don't, the consequences can be tragic. If performance dips, I reserve the right to take those freedoms away. And for those judged to be persistently failing, we will act.
His audience listened carefully. They need to. Their trusts will be pitted against each other in new league tables, and that's worrying some.
So I think what we have to recognise is that you really need to support improvement and support performance. And the question has to be asked, are league tables the way to do that? Or is it encouraging greater collaboration across systems?
So do you think a league table will do that?
I think it's going to be difficult.
And beyond the conference, there are other concerns.
Another profound problem with performance tables is that they can create a culture of target chasing, and that could lead to a cover-up of bad news, and that would be bad news for patient safety.
It's also what caused the scandal at Stafford Hospital. Staff under pressure to meet targets put lives at risk. Julie Bailey campaigned after her mother died from poor care.
As soon as I heard the announcement, I thought straight away, you know, we could be on the next back to mid-staffs. The conditions we had that created mid-staffs, where we hide things, and we think we've got good hospitals, but really we haven't.
Wes Streeting insists patients are at the heart of his reform. He knows where he's heading, but he'll need the support of NHS staff to guarantee success. Laura Bundock, Sky News, Liverpool.
Well, staying with the Health Secretary, and earlier today, Mr Streeting ordered his department to analyse the cost of implementing the assisted dying bill, should it become law. He has already said he is against the proposals, but he's now suggested there may need to be cuts to other NHS services if changes are brought in. Mr Streeting's Junior Health Minister, Karen Smith, spoke to Sky News earlier.
Do you share the Health Secretary's concerns?
Well, just to be clear, there isn't a review into the cost. That's not what Wes Streeting said. It's absolutely normal for any legislation that's going through to be looked at by the department, whether the Ministry of Justice, Health Department, to make sure that the department is ready to do whatever Parliament decides.
You obviously believe in assisted dying. Many people would agree with you on that. But do you have concerns over the cost of it?
No, I have concerns about people's choice at the end of life and that they are treated in a safe and humane way.
Storms have caused more flooding in Spain 2 weeks after flash floods in Valencia killed more than 220 people. In southern Malaga, the streets were flooded as rivers burst their banks, halting all train services in the region. 3,000 people were evacuated from their homes, and all schools across the province were closed after the red alert for rain was issued. At least 1,700 jobs are at risk at the DIY giant Homebase, which is facing administration, despite a prolonged partial rescue package. Sky News understands the owner of the range homeware outlets has bought 70 Homebase stores, saving 1,600 jobs. Administrators are trying to find a buyer for the remaining 49 stores. One of the most distinguished actors of his generation, Timothy West, has died at the age of 90. His family said the star died peacefully in his sleep and was with friends and family at the end. He was an accomplished Shakespearean performer who also featured in sitcoms, blockbuster films and soap operas, including Coronation Street and EastEnders. In recent years, he made the Channel 4 series Great Canal Journeys alongside his wife of more than 60 years, Prunella Scales, who suffers from dementia. Now, the original Gladiator film was one of the biggest critical and commercial successes of the past 25 years. Now, director Sir Ridley Scott has returned to the arena for a sequel, and in keeping with the imperial theme, the King was in attendance on the red carpet to give the royal seal of approval. Earlier, though, the King saw the flip side of an industry that has seen tough times post-pandemic, as our arts and entertainment correspondent Katie Spencer reports, and a warning of some flash photography coming up.
24 years after Sir Ridley Scott's Roman blockbuster, a solo cinema outing for the King, meeting the sequel's stars. Would Paul Mescal get an up or down-turned thumb from His Majesty?
I think I'm excited to play with what an audience is expecting of me. And I'm struggling with words at the moment because this has been an absolutely wildly, I keep using the word overwhelming, but I think if this isn't slightly overwhelming, I don't know what the hell is. I'm having a great time.
Ridley Scott. Before the bloody on-screen battles, Buckingham Palace. A royal reception earlier in the day, celebrating those who work within the UK TV and film industry. Power struggles playing out on and off screen at the moment, as smaller indie films struggle to find funding, with fewer films getting made and budgets being drastically squeezed.
We've had a few years where there's been a lack of support, whether intentional or unintentional. We need all the support we can get, because there's a lot of people in our industry who are struggling, and having their support means something.
This is about survival!
Gladiator 2, the other extreme, with an actual scale model of the Colosseum built for this, flooded with water at one stage, huge costs and a lot of hype surrounding this legacy sequel.
The production that went into making Gladiator 2 is extraordinary. If the rumours are true, it's hardly surprising that this ran way over budget, some saying by around 100 million. But that matters not, because behind the scenes, predictive analysis into current tastes and trends means the powers that be are confident that this will be the blockbuster to get us off our sofas and into cinemas.
Not that filmmaker Sir Ridley Scott listens to those computers.
Any film of that scale, it doesn't matter how we play it down, is colossally stressful. You better embrace stress, otherwise don't do the job.
The greatest temple Rome ever built, the Colosseum.
A standout performance from Denzel Washington in a role so brilliantly Machiavellian, it might just win him his third Oscar. While Paul Mescal might have bulked up, some critics say the storylines could have done with feeding more. Either way, Gladiator 2 is pretty much guaranteed to be a hit. Good news for cinemas as they continue to fight for pre-pandemic audience numbers. To quote the original, "Are you not entertained?" Katie Spencer, Sky News.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview tonight, joined by the broadcaster and commentator Alex Andreou and the former Conservative Special Advisor Salma Shah. Great to see both of you. And among the stories we will be discussing, this on the front page of the Daily Mail. Its headline, now council tax to rise by £110. Plus Trump and Biden, of course, as you can see there. Back in a moment.
this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Tanks, heavy vehicle.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
Just want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
Hello there, you're watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. Time then to see what's making the headlines with the broadcaster and commentator Alex Andreou and the former Conservative Special Advisor Salma Shah. Welcome and great to see both of you. So to the front pages then, let us kick off with The Guardian. It leads with the Middle East and a report from Human Rights Watch which says Israel is committing crimes against humanity in Gaza. The Metro reports that Pete Hegseth, the weekend breakfast presenter for Fox News, who has no prior government experience, is Donald Trump's nominee for US Defence Secretary. The FT has that breaking news from this hour on pension reform. The headline, Reeves will force council pensions to merge into 8 £50 billion mega funds. Trump and Biden pictured, as you can see. Daily Mail says council tax is set to rise by an average of £110 per household. That news coming after PMQs, where the Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch attacked the Prime Minister over the issue. On the front page of The Times, the backlash over the budget continues. Ahead of the Chancellor's speech at Mansion House tomorrow, the British Retail Consortium have warned that job losses are inevitable and higher prices a certainty. An email leaked to The Eye appears to show the official leading the government's home building plan, admitting there is no way it can be accomplished before the next election. The Telegraph again defending its columnist Alison Pearson after it emerged she received a visit from Essex police over an allegation of inciting racial hatred on social media, something that she denies. And the Daily Mirror with an exclusive expose on beauty firms as the Wild West of cosmetic surgery in Britain is revealed. Well, a reminder, by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you watch our guests. So let's head straight to Alex and Salma. Welcome to both of you. Kicking off with the picture story, really, of the newspapers, which is Trump, Biden and the White House. Fascinating to see. Clearly did not happen 4 years ago, in reverse. The reports were that the fireside was crackling, as you can see in the picture there. But the appointments, Alex, coming thick and fast this evening.
Yes, thick and fast, mainly thick, if I can say so. No, there are some very, very strange ones in there. Particularly notable is Matt Gaetz and Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence. Now, Tulsi Gabbard, I would encourage you viewers to look up her story. It's a very, very interesting political journey. She was a Democrat congressperson from Hawaii, stood against Hillary Clinton, lost in the first round, at which point she started to say that it was all some deep state conspiracy, left the Democrats, ended up a very, very regular on Fox, and then launched her own podcast that is really all about the deep state. She is a conspiracist in every sense of the word. So to appoint her as Director of National Intelligence is really quite a thing. Quite a thing.
It's interesting because we have the same problem that we had in the first Trump administration, which is it's absolute loyalists that are being appointed to these positions, and there isn't any kind of sense that, you know, you've got to bring lots of different people with lots of different experiences in around the table. But also there's this media element to it, there's this entertainment element to it. He's sort of bringing people in that are a lot like himself in that they have created personal brands and they've created trust with people through their podcasts or TV shows or whatever it might be. But also critics, cynics of the establishment. So it's not like he wants to have people that are going to be trusted by the DOJ, the Defense Department, or any of the other institutions or organisations that he's recruiting for. It is really about the skeptic coming in, you know, like Elon Musk, I'll take all this money out of the federal budget, etc. It is people that are naturally actually mistrustful of the system. And so there is a theme, there is a logic that runs through it.
Yes, there's an internal logic, but surely there is a lot of space between someone who is not an establishment person and appointing someone who's still under investigation by Congress for having an affair with a minor and sex trafficking to run the Department of Justice. I mean,
allegations denied, of course.
Yes, absolutely. But I'm saying he's still under investigation.
Yes, so the new Attorney General, newly appointed Attorney General, with the news that this would be a beefed-up role because the Ministry of Justice is under attack, and so might the FBI be with the reports before the election, because, of course, Donald Trump has accused the Ministry of Justice of being weaponised under the Trump administration in order to be out to get him. So, you know, goodbye all the court cases, no doubt. Let's go to the world section of the Times, shall we? There's the fireside and the handshake, all cordial. You know, what they're both thinking about each other, who knows? But you're talking about the smoothest of transitions. It is desperately a contrast from 2020-21, isn't it?
It is, and I saw the little... interview that they did, you know, not interview really, they have a bit of recorded comment. And Trump seemed to not be aware at all of the irony that he was sitting there and saying, oh, it's very nice that you're doing a very smooth transition. It's like, he doesn't seem to be aware that the same rules apply to him, which is really the Trump theme, has been from the start.
Yes, and I do wonder as well, the sort of warm welcome, the fireside, the sort of glowing picture that's come out. There's still sort of rumours circulating, and it's been published in the press about the fact that Biden's sort of quite pleased after his ousting as a candidate and sort of thinks that this is a great farewell from him, given that he wasn't treated, as I expect from his perspective, that nicely by the Democrats. So... I think there might be a little bit of that, a little bit of sour grapes involved in this too.
Yes, and also in this paper, in fact, the bit we've cut off, Elon Musk helped me to cut insanely dumb spending. One of the US networks tonight talking about the possibility of cutting $2 trillion worth of spending. Now, what is therefore being cut? You know, again, rumours of the education department, you know, throw it back to the States, for example. But, you know, slash and burn level when you talk about trillions of dollars.
I mean, I think that's the point, that there's a lot you can delegate to the state level. And because there is a notion that the Trump government in general wants to degrade the fabric of the federal nature...
Well, it's the classic right-wing small government stuff, isn't it, really?
Well,
but it's agencies that warn about tornadoes or hurricanes sort of in the firing line, isn't it?
Yeah, but then it's not their... But then it's not their thing. If a hurricane happens...
that is a federal agency.
No, but what I'm saying is if they delegate it to the state level and say, that's yours now...
Yeah, but hurricanes go across more than one state, don't they? I mean, you know, but anyway,
But what's interesting is that you now have two heads of this, responsible for cutting this money. So you've got Elon Musk, and then you have a former Trump... contender for the Republican candidacy, and Vivek Ramaswamy. And he said something like, well, do we really need the Department for Education, for example? And so I think you can talk a good game about, and as Elon says, having a leaderboard of dumb ways that the tax dollar is spent. But as the old adage goes, to govern is to choose. Every choice that they make will have implications for the House as well and all of other elected Republicans. So there will be backlash.
Yeah, and just very quickly, we'll show the choice for Defence Secretary, which will no doubt everyone will watch very closely. The Fox News TV host, Pete Hegseth, 44-year-old former National Guardsman in charge of thousands of service personnel, veterans and procurement budgets, which will be fascinating. Do you mind if we move on? Got a lot to pack in this evening. Let us go to the Times then. Business backlash over the budget continues. Rachel Reeves and her Mansion House speech coming on, what day is it tomorrow? Thursday evening. But, you know, where's this falling at the moment then? Salma, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, so there's two parts to it. We'll go on to it in a minute with the FT, where we've got some specifics that are potentially coming out from Rachel Reeves' speech. But here, we've got retailers who are... really complaining about the impact of the NICS increases and the tax changes in the thresholds, because you've got big supermarkets who are facing absolutely enormous cuts to what they had expected on their balance sheets because they are massive employers. And I think the knock-on effect on this is growth, as everyone has talked about. But this is, I think, one of the big sort of sectors that's coming out and publicly condemning what Rachel Reeves has done in the budget. I think what this means politically is that the nervousness that existed around Labour and what they would do has been sort of compounded, and that big business sort of flirtation that Labour had in opposition. I don't think
it was.
that
I mean, it was a
relationship-
proper woo. It wasn't a flirtation, was
well,
it? You know,
so I think the business was a lot more sceptical, but they saw which way the wind was blowing and they decided to go with it. But there was always a nervousness around, you know, let's see what happens when she does her first budget, and now she has.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, the gloves are going to come off.
OK, FT then, the Mansion House speech, the idea of merging little pension pots and making them mega ones in order to use the money for investment is sort of the idea behind this.
I think that's a really good idea. Yeah. We were saying before we came on that the state doesn't really use its purchasing muscle efficiently enough. That is often the case. Combining loads of small funds into one that has the power and ability to get a better deal out there in the market in terms of investment seems to me a very, very sensible thing.
OK, and slightly connected to that story we're going to come on to in just a moment is that council tax looks set to rise above the rate of inflation. And we'll bring you that cheery news in just a moment.
We're rolling.
Welcome to the world.
Our new podcast, starting now. It's very exciting. Every week, we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
I'm Stuart Ramsey, and I'm Sky's chief correspondent.
An enormous explosion that's just come down. I think it was a monster just landed in between us.
Hundreds and hundreds of people hoping to get north, ultimately to get to the United States. It's a border where they're not welcome, yet they keep coming.
We saw snatch squads going in, grabbing people, taking them out and putting them into trucks and taking them away.
They make about 50 kilos of fentanyl a week. It's incredibly dangerous and toxic stuff.
There's been an upsurge in deaths. The fighting between the gangs is getting more and more vicious.
Is this now all your territory?
Yeah. The battlefield is outside the barricades, which is over there. This is much more like a normal town. It's really sending a clear message that Venezuela is eager for change.
We're being crushed. Free from wherever you get your news. We are in the middle of a forest, in a jungle really, and they're attempting to keep these men alive. This is real, hardcore emergency medicine. The information on this could bring down the entire network, not just in Iraq and Syria, but across the world. Sky News, the full story first.
Hundreds of thousands of people have been using the beast for years to traverse Mexico, but it is really dangerous. Many people have died riding it.
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's futures.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away. So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Welcome back. You are watching the Press Preview, joined once again by Alex Andreou and Salma Shah. Welcome back to both of you. So, council taxes, another tax, going up by, it seems, 5%, which will be about £110 average per household. How are we feeling about that?
I mean, not great.
Personally, yeah. Nobody welcomes taxes.
Nobody loves taxes. Okay.
Think of the spending, which is what Keir Starmer was trying to get people to say today.
The question is, does the state need to raise this money and why? And really, on the local authority level, it's all about social care. That is the part of the services that is really, really creaking and bursting at the seams. And so, I mean...
I think the issue is, as well, in the way that they're splitting it, they're saying 3% social care, 2% for other spending. There is, on top of that, as well, a social care levy. So, in and of itself, there have been previous council tax rises over the last decade, up to 5%, beyond which you would have to have a local referendum. Yeah. I think the issue here, and the Daily Mail, by the way, has always hated these, even under a Conservative government, any of these kinds of rises. There's an editorial position, I think, to not support it. But coming off the back of a huge increase in the budget, albeit for business, not individual tax rises, increasing cost of living, I think this is another sort of stress that is going to be on households. And I imagine that that's the reason Kemi Badenoch decided that she would go on this, with some mixed success at the dispatch box.
And to be fair, you know, privately run care homes affected by the issues you raised earlier, which is national insurance and wage increases via the national minimum wage, which, you know, may cause some to close, in fact. Publicly, not so much, of course, not so much targeted. In the meantime, let us go to housing. Labour will miss its new homes pledge, is the front page of the... I've got the eye. We'll come back to that in a minute. But anyway, carry on with the eye for now.
Yeah, so this is really interesting because there's always been a pledge over successive governments to, over a parliament, increase house building by 1 million new homes. And the target's never really reached. Nobody really knows what happens to the numbers, etc., etc. And so Labour came in with a target of 1.5 million, which was, anybody who's worked in housing and the housing department, which I have, it's sort of surprising that they would go to that level. Now, the outgoing chief executive of an organisation called Homes England, which is supposed to deliver these houses, an email to staff has been leaked that says the 2029 target of 1.5 million homes is ambitious, which I think is civil service code for not going to happen. And realistically, this is a 2 parliamentary term approach. Now, these things have a habit of leaking out, but I think that because this is a huge issue for so many people, getting on the housing ladder, having safe, secure housing, and it's such a central pledge to the manifesto. I think this is going to be really telling. So being able to watch and follow how this target progresses and whether it can be met is something that we should all follow closely.
And quick look at our final story in the Metro is how to deal with scam callers, and the idea is have a fake granny voice.
I love this story. This is proper technology strikes back. So basically, it's an AI-generated nan that engages with scammers and basically keeps them on the phone for upwards to 40 minutes by telling loads of yarns, and you know, it's designed to make the person trying to scam think that they're doing well, that they're gaining her trust. It's kind of magnificent, actually.
It's called a scam beta tool.
Yeah.
Scam beta tool.
I love it.
Coming to a home near you. Alex and Salma, lovely to see you both. Thank you. See you for more in the 11, obviously. To the weather now. The next few days look mainly dry, although fairly cloudy, but it will turn much more unsettled over the weekend with a cold northerly flow developing. There'll be a rather murky, mostly mild start tomorrow. Drizzly outbreaks in the north and south and fog in places, but expect a local frost following any lengthy overnight clear spells. Northwestern parts will stay rather grey and damp through the morning. Fog on the hills. But the cloud will tend to break up elsewhere with lingering drizzly outbreaks in the south fading. So southern, eastern England look like having the best sunny spells. Temperatures around the November average again, but expect a chilly breeze in the southeast. Afternoon bringing more of the same. Cloud breaks will begin to fill in later. Friday, another rather murky day with more widespread drizzly outbreaks. Well, our press preview continues in Sky News at 11. Biden and Trump meet in the White House. We will have the latest on Donald Trump's appointments, some of them set to provoke more controversy.
Play Sky News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7.
Now that you're up to date, we can go into a bit more detail.
Things can change incredibly quickly.
Taken by surprise.
Have you ever known a moment like this in British politics before? Yes.